All right, folks, here's a Dear Ham Diary edition just for you. We recently did a podcast recording where we discussed the ARRL and whether or not membership is worth the cost. We've gotten quite a few responses, some in agreement, some in disagreement, and some just skeptical. So I wanted to provide a little bit of context and a little bit of information. Of course, the information that we have is outdated because the current public information that is available is only as recent as 2022 and a little bit of 2023. And so we have no 2024 data, and we have very limited 2023 data. But I want to walk you through a little bit of the information and where I got the information and how I feel confident in presenting the information to you, so that while you may be skeptical and you may have doubts as to its accuracy, it's probably not that far off. From the IRS website, you can search any registered company that exists in America. It's very easy for a nonprofit to go astray if they do not have good leadership. Now, this is not a personal attack against any one specific person at the ARRL. I want to be clear on that. I am not attacking anyone. I am simply presenting the information that is available to us publicly. And if someone has more current, better information that they wish to add, please send it to me, and I will gladly update so that you have the most current information that there is. So looking at the IRS website, we see that we have the American Radio Relay League Incorporated, which has an EIN number, employer identification number, and you can see their 990 filings. 990s are one of those documents that you file with the IRS as a nonprofit. They don't often paint the full picture. If you show a profit, you have to pay taxes on it. The whole point of being a nonprofit is you're exempt from federal taxes on your income because you are generating revenue specifically to funnel into your programs. And that was the big point that I was trying to make in the podcast, is that a lot of times what happens with these nonprofits is because money needs to be funneled into something so that it's used, more often than not, it gets put into operating expenses. And operating expenses are not the programs. Operating expenses are not the Teachers Institute or any of the wonderful things that the ARRL has that are good for us and the community. Having said that, let's take a look at some of the numbers. When we did the podcast, and I came up with a couple very, very popular websites, one being Glassdoor.com. And so if you look, there are 12 salaries submitted anonymously, anywhere from $61,000 to $101,000 a year. 3 salaries submitted as an engineer, between $71,000 and $125,000 a year. Assistant editor, 2 salaries submitted between $52,000 and $74,000 a year. And here we have CEO, Chief Executive Officer, anywhere from $144,000 to $269,000 a year. And that's with 2 salaries submitted. Now, however, when you go and you try and dig a little deeper in Glassdoor, it tells you that they're unable to confidently predict a total pay estimate because they don't actually have the information. So while Glassdoor is great, it's not the end all be all, right? So let's look at other sources. The other source that I used in the podcast was salary.com. And salary.com has been around for a while, and they tend to have a very good accounting of what salaries are at various companies. And they do this through a range of different methods of searching financial records and public data. And so here we've got a list, and it starts with the Chief Executive Officer at the top, ranging from $601,000 to $988,000. All right. The average salary being $784,991. And that is the number that I quoted on the podcast. That number seems ridiculous. How is it that the chief executive officer of the ARRL would have a salary of that much? And we're going to get into those numbers in a minute when we look at their public filings. I want you to see where I got this information and how I came about these numbers. Now, if we look at candid.org, which is very, very good at looking at nonprofits and how much money that they bring in and how much money they put out, how much they're worth. So we can see here the American Radio Relay League Incorporated, right? That's the ARRL. And there's the employee identification number, and the ARRL Foundation is just below it, and it has a separate employee identification number because for tax purposes, they are separate entities, even though they are run by the same people. And so you can see that on Candid, they're reporting a total revenue of $13.6 million with a total assets of $41 million and a total giving of $64,000. Well, that seems off, right? Well, those numbers are really far apart from one another. Now, the ARRL Foundation, total revenue of $1 million, total assets of just under $8 million, and they gave away almost $1.5 million. Well, that seems a lot better, right? Like, good job. Like, you took in $1 million and you gave out 1.4. That's fantastic. That means that the money that came into the foundation went out plus some to better the community, to help hams. That's the kind of thing that we want to see. That's where we want to see these things, so that we know that the money that we're giving is going to good causes. It's going to better the community and better help other hams. Let's take a look here at the 990 filings that we have available to us. Now, again, so for the ARRL itself, the most recent filing we have is 2022. And for the ARRL Foundation, the most recent filing we have is 23. So it's nice that we actually have a 23 filing. However, when you open the 23 filing, it's listed as a 22 filing. So I don't know if there's some discrepancy there, or, maybe they were late filing that year and it got filed on the wrong year. I couldn't say to the specifics of why that is. But let's take a look at the numbers. The general rule of thumb for a nonprofit, and you can look at the Wounded Warrior Project is a fantastic one. In, I believe it was 2015, they got in a lot of trouble because what is expected of a nonprofit is that 75% of the money generated is going to get funneled directly into the programs and go back to the communities that the community programs that they're looking to support with those funds. That leaves 25% for operating, which that's a very reasonable expectation of a nonprofit. Like, you're filing for federal grant money, and you're getting free money from the government in addition to all the fundraising and the membership money that you get from your members. And so people want to know that nonprofits are taking 75% of the money that is generated and they are putting it back into their programs. That is a functioning nonprofit that people are going to be happy to donate to. Having said that, let's continue with the numbers. So here we're looking at the 990 that was filed in 2022 for the ARRL itself. The organization's mission is to promote interest in amateur radio and the establishment of amateur radio network. So here for revenues for 2022, their contributions and grants went down by about $1 million. Still just under $2 million for the year. Program service revenue, just under $10 million. Investment income, $3.6 million. Other revenue, $524,000, for a total revenue of $16 million in 22. Okay, so let's look at what they paid out. All right. Grants and similar things paid out. 80,000. 80,000. Well, wait a minute, because in revenue coming in for contributions and grants, it was 2 million. Why is there only 80,000 going out in similar grants? That seems a little odd. Salaries, other compensation, and employee benefits. Well, that's going to be a big chunk of the budget, right? So $7.2 million in salaries, compensation, and employee benefits. Okay, so $7.2 million. Okay. Other expenses, $6.4 million. All right, well, we'll have to see down further what those other expenses are. So total expenses, $13.7 million. So revenue less expenses, that means they only made $2.2 million in 22. So 990 Part 3, Statement of Program Services Accomplishments. This is what did your nonprofit do during the last year? Well, let's take a look. Well, you had $6.5 million in expenses, including 80,000 in grants, and revenue of $6.6 million, almost $6.7 million. 4B, expenses, $2.2 million, with a revenue of $1.3 million. Then we've got 4C. Again, there's no code, so this is all C additional data is what it says. Here we go. Expenses, $634,000, with revenue of $361,000. Then we have provided technical information for the organization's regulatory efforts, product review testing, and provide technological support to members. That cost them $415,000, almost $416,000. So other program services, we got $415,996, zero grants, zero revenue. So total program service expenses, $9.9 million. So now let's continue to go down. All right, statement of revenue, part 8 of the 990. So contributions from gifts, grants, and other similar amounts that are not included in membership dues, fundraising events, related organizations, or government grants, $1.9 million. Non-cash contributions, so that's somebody donated something, $66,000. So total for that, just shy of $2 million. Okay. Membership dues, $6.7 million. Advertising income, $1.58 million. Circulation, publications, $656,000. Program and service fees, $591,000. And exam fees, $302,000. We'll round up. So that is a total revenue of $9.889 million, right? Total of all revenues, here we've got 16 million. Okay, expenses, 80,000 in grants and other assistance to domestic organization and domestic governments. All right. Other salaries and wages, $5.2 million. So you generated 16 million, and just salaries and wages, 5.5 million. Actually, it's 5.7 million. So their total functional expenses is $13.7 million. All right. Now, here's the additional data. Remember those numbers that were way up the top of expenses where we didn't know what those expenses were specifically for because it said, no, you gotta see the additional data. 990 Part 3, Line 4A was for promoting public interest in and experimenting with amateur radio communications, encouragement of the exchange of ideas and expertise among members, and various other member programs. Man, that's a mouthful of really vague nothing, really. Like it. Thank you for blowing smoke up the IRS's ass on this one, because well done. Second one, QST. All right. So for the QST magazine, we're itemizing just that one magazine of their whole assortment of magazines. I would venture to guess that they're probably just combining every all of their publication, their monthly publications that they used to put out under the QST. So they say circulation's approximately 143,000 members. And let's go back to page 2. So here we go. They're listing that it cost them $2.2 million to put out the QST magazine with a revenue of $1.3 million. So, okay. So the QST magazine is a loser for them. Okay. But is that worth losing a little bit and building that loss into your budget to make sure that your members have that magazine in their hand? And I realize that the people have been making the argument, well, it's all available digitally. It's all available digitally. So it's all at your fingertips. All you got to do is look at your phone or look at the computer. But let me give you this counterpoint. Okay. Now I'm 43. I'm not old, but I'm not young. And I stare at screens for the majority of the day, whether it's my phone, the laptop, the computer. There's always a screen. And so when I sit down and I want to enjoy something and I want to read something, I want a physical paper thing. I don't want a screen light shining in my face for more time. And I realize, right, well, most of us will hang on to the magazines for a little bit and then ultimately end up recycling them. And so what is the point, right? Well, the point is that I get to enjoy the content that comes in that magazine that I paid for with my membership, and I don't have to stare at a screen. Now, if I want to search their archives and I want to look for an article, that's a fantastic benefit as well. But the printed magazine is not a bad thing just because it's an inefficient method of delivering the same news articles. Because ultimately, you're helping your members by getting them a little less screen time. And I think we could all use a little less screen time. So, all right. So the next category here, 4C, that was also unclear. $634,000 is what it cost, and it brought in a revenue of $361,000. So we're dramatically lower in numbers here, but again, this is another loss to them. Let's go back to page 14, and so here we have that line C, the 600,000 there is for advocacy, to promote the use of amateur radio, especially as emergency communication in time of disaster, monitor FCC regulations in regards to amateur radio on behalf of its members, monitor legislation as it relates to amateur radio to keep members informed of important changes. Wasn't that one of the primary functions? Like if we went all the way back to the beginning where they listed their mission statement, that's almost directly in line by being an advocacy part of their organization. That's what they do. And yet that's the smallest amount of those itemized expenses that they didn't want to fully explain up top because they wanted to give this bullshit answer down below. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Are you understanding that it's okay to be skeptical, especially when you're looking at people's businesses' tax filings? Because the business doesn't want Uncle Sam to know exactly how much money they've got coming in and going out. And I want to say that there's more going into the programs than there really is because you don't want to have to pay Uncle Sam, especially when you're a nonprofit. That doesn't bode well. So I digress. I'm getting in the weeds here, but it is okay to question these organizations and question where your money is going, and do you truly get a value from your membership, especially when your membership nearly doubles over the course of a year, and there's a public statement from the organization saying that they know that membership is going to go down and they don't care because it doesn't matter to them. That's unacceptable. So now let's look compensation of officers, directors, trustees, key employees, highest compensated employees, independent contractors. Here we have all of the ARRL directors listed, and it says that they put in an average of 10 hours a week, and they get zero compensation for it. Oh, okay. Well, thank you for being a director at the ARRL for free. Now we start to get into some numbers where people are actually getting paid. All right. The chief financial officer, the woman who filled out this form, 40-hour work week, 192,878 was the reportable compensation from the W-2. And then we also have other compensation of 36,415. So just over 200,000 for the year. Okay. David Minster, the CEO, 40-hour work week. Now, this lists 258,831 as the base salary, plus an additional 47,000 in unrelated compensation. Okay. Technical relations specialist, 136,000 plus an additional 16. Product development manager, 130,000 plus an additional 19. Editorial and production manager, 129,000 plus an additional 30. So yeah, it looks like nobody's making exorbitant amounts of money here, right? You can battle it out in the comments all you want. Here are the numbers. Here are the numbers that we're able to see publicly. Now, these numbers are outdated. These numbers are several years old. What happens year after year? These numbers go up, right? Salaries don't go down year after year. Salaries go up. Do I know for a fact? No, I don't. I don't have those numbers. But anybody can see these numbers, and this is my task to you. Stop taking everything at face value. Do your own homework. Look into it. Research it. Question it. I appreciate 100% the number of people that said, hey, wait a minute. Time out. That doesn't look right. And what are we getting out of it? Like, what do we as members get out of it? Well, we have to pay extra if we want the magazine now, because the magazine isn't something that they want to do. Their website is absolute trash. It looks like a combination of 3 different websites from 3 different eras in the very late 90s to early 2000s. None of it works well. It's displayed very poorly. Then look at the LOTW and the nightmare that is the LOTW. Like, it is such a convoluted process to try and figure out if you even qualify for your awards. And then you have to pay in order to qualify for your awards, and then pay for the certificate. Why? Like, I could just use QRZ. They track all of my contacts and my confirmations in a very easy to understand way. And I just click on the award and I go, do I qualify based on my confirmed contacts? Do I? Okay, I do. Great. Well, then I get the digital award that's listed on my QRZ page. And that's fantastic. And then if I want the award as a member, I think I get 1 free a year, or I can pay the $15 to get my awards. It's very reasonable. I'm happy to pay $15 for a nice certificate. However, I will not ever pay, $100 to qualify for LOTW Worked All States. No way. Not a chance in hell. It's not worth it. And so, once again, I'm just going to leave you with this. Think critically about these things. Question the people that run these organizations that you support, especially when they're big corporations, because what happens in big corporations is people get greedy and money gets funneled into operating expenses instead of programs. And just like is going on with the federal government right now, where they're discovering all kinds of waste and abuse, these big nonprofit organizations also need to have major overhauls and rethinking their budgets and realigning their priorities so that the bulk of their money, now mind you, all right, 75% is the golden number. 75% of money generated going into your programs, not into your salary, not paying your full-time employees and paying for your building and all of that, but 75% of all money generated should be going into your programs. And maybe then we wouldn't have to fundraise so hard for things like the Teachers Institute. So I'm sure this video is much longer than I had intended. I greatly appreciate you for sticking with me through this adventure, and I hope some of this makes sense to you. Please leave a comment below. Let me know what you think, and let's have an open, honest discussion about this, where we don't need to personally attack anyone, but let's look at the numbers, let's analyze the data and analyze the facts and come to logical, rational conclusions based on that information.